Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Broodlord Lashlayer, the third boss in BWL. Broodlord is a pretty straightforward, fast fight at the end of the lovely suppression room. Broodlord is a simple fight, but he can be very deadly with his Mortal Strike ability. So let's go ahead and take a look at my kill in real time so you can get a sense of what I did, and then we'll slow things down and break down what you need to do the most DPS on this fight.
Oh, kill these, range kill these whelps, good time to drop aggro. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Alright, Emmerich has the boss. Kill those whelps, everybody. Heal Emmerich, heal Emmerich. Emmerich has normal strike. I crit, but I missed, my bad. Flex has the boss now. Just grabbing third. Immediately, if you stand over on this side, you won't get blown away against the whelps.
Sounds like a great idea.
Full for. Alright, Emmerich has the boss again. Not sure. Going Mortal Strike on Emmerich. Has to aggro, watch out. Damn it.
One knock.
I know. Damn it. Okay.
So that's Broodlord. Before we can talk about Broodlord, we need to get to Broodlord. And to get to Broodlord, we need to go through the suppression room. Now this is not a suppression room guide, the suppression room is not that hard. But, as you get closer to Broodlord, you'll find that, at least my guild, tends to kill Broodlord around the 30-minute mark each raid. This means that some of your key consumables are going to be coming off of cooldown, and you're going to want to refresh them when you have a chance as you're walking through the suppression room, so you're not wildly trying to do it right before the boss. Key things to check are your sharpening stones on your weapons, your crit stones or your dent stones. Those could be, they could be about to run out, or they might run out midway through the fight. Go ahead and refresh those. And then also your consumables, your food buffs, make sure you reapply those right before the fight. If you're using desert dumplings, when your guild cuts into a corner or pauses for people to get mana, go ahead and start eating those so you can apply that buff. Fire water, you're going to want to check that. The key thing of advice is, before we get to the fight, this is sort of a unique encounter, as that you have sort of a long journey to get to him through the suppression room, so make sure that at the end of that journey you're freshly buffed, freshly applied with all your consumables, and ideally you get 100 rage on the last dragon pack before you move in to attack the boss. So normally what my guild does is we sort of go into these corners here, we pause for mana, and you'll see me reapplying my buffs now, and we get ready to go in on Broodlord. Now you're going to want to gather some rage on these whelps before you get up for the encounter, and just so you can start the attack, so you can start on Broodlord with 100 rage. Now, one of the key things that we need to talk about on this fight are some of Broodlord's key mechanics. He does something called a Mortal Strike, and Mortal Strike is going to hit your tanks very, very hard. It can do as much as 15k damage to a cloth wearer, and it can do 8k damage to a warrior. It's going to one-shot you if you pull aggro. Broodlord also does a cleave ability. You want to stand behind Broodlord. Thirdly, and most importantly, he will do a knockback ability. If you get knocked back by this ability, it is going to cut your threat by 50%. So that sounds great, right? Like, you can do as much damage as you want, you get hit by the knockback, and you can keep going hard. Unfortunately, your tanks are going to be the ones being knocked back most frequently. So the key to this fight is threat management. If you do not manage your threat on this fight, Broodlord will turn around and kill you before you have a chance to lip, and before the healers even have a chance to click your name or cast any sort of heal at all. You need to stay below your main tank and off tank on this fight because of how Broodlord will reset aggro on the main tank, and then the off tank needs to climb back up through threat. This encounter I'm going to show you, I actually die at the end from pulling aggro, and looking through this video again, I could easily see what was going to happen before it happened. You need to have a threat meter. I will link my threat meter here, but you need to have this and you need to watch it. because if you see that a tank was knocked back and you are now number 2 on threat, you need to chill out for a little bit, let your off tank get aggro, or if your off tank's dead or he's not even close, you need to put a shield on and you need to get ready. So those are some of the mechanics of Broodlord. I'll go through them again during the fight. So pausing here as we run in. So Broodlord is a pretty straightforward fight. You're going to want to use Diamond Flash relatively quickly if your kill time is around a minute or a little bit longer. Look up your kill times, stress this each fight, look them up, write them down. You will do the most damage based upon if you're timing them correctly. So cooldowns you're using this fight: Diamond Flash, Death Wish, Recklessness if you're going for a parse, and either a Mighty Rage potion or a limited invulnerability potion depending on how the fight's going. More on that as we go through the fight. So before the fight even starts, make sure you have, if you want to be competitive, world buffs, full consumables, and also know your kill times. That is important for each fight. Now, so we're running into the fight now. I've got 88 rage. I'm in Zerker stance. I've got my trinkets ready. Got my buffs here. If you see how I have 29 minutes on the buffs, it's because I reapplied them right as we were about to start. My food dropped off. My Winterfall Firewater dropped off. I reapplied food, Firewater, Juju, and both crit stone buffs. No one said it was cheap being a great warrior. It's not, but it's the price we pay for greatness. So we're going to run in. The tank is going to take the boss to the corner, and we're going to let the tank and the off tank get aggro because, like I said, we do not want to pull aggro. One thing you can do as you're running up, you can attack those whelps just to let the tanks establish threat. As you see with my tanks, they pull ahead very quickly at 5k and 4k respectively, and I go ahead and start DPSing. Now right there is what you see is the knockback ability. That will happen randomly. Another thing on this boss is that you want to stand behind Broodlord. Do not stand in front of him. He will cleave. You do not want to get hit by that. You want to be hit by it as little as possible. So stand behind the boss. That's a good practice to get into. So I got knocked back. Now what you can do now is you can charge right back in, intercept right back into the boss. That's a good habit to get into. You'll see here we're asking to get the whelps down, so I go ahead and put some DPS on the whelps. I'm kind of low health there. If I were to whirlwind and attack all those whelps, they could have killed me. But then I go ahead and I get back behind the boss again, and we just keep the rotation going. So I go ahead and I pop Diamond Flask way too late. All of the videos I'm making this video from an old run. I'm getting better at popping these cooldowns, but Diamond Flash should have been popped a little bit earlier. But I popped it once the main tank had enough aggro, but still should have Diamond Flashed way earlier. One thing I would recommend is, if you'll see here, I popped Diamond Flask at 67%. Per my guide, I'm supposed to pop it at around 90%, so that's a scuff on my part. I would recommend, if your computer can enable it, to record your fights. Recording your fights allows you to look back in real time, look back after the fact, and see when you popped your cooldowns as opposed to when you ideally needed to pop them. You'll notice that with everything going on in these fights, trying to do your rotation, trying to not pull threat, managing your cooldowns, you'll not do them when you're supposed to do them, even though you know when you're supposed to do them. So go back, look through your fights if you can, and just know when you're not popping at the right time. Let's pause for a second and let's look at the threat meter. My main tank, Clexiston, has 17k threat. I am 4th on threat at 11k, and my off tank has 10k threat. What this means is that if Broodlord was to not Klex back now, he would then, and then if he was to use his Mortal Strike ability, he would target Theron right here. And Theron is a DPS warrior, a really good DPS warrior in my guild, and he would delete him from the game. What you need to do now is really watch your threat in a situation like this. Slow down. Don't go too hard. If you'll see here that my off tank is starting to climb back up through the meters, and I'm kind of slowing down a little bit. So what you'll see here is the main tank gets knocked back, and you'll see that Clexiston then takes threat. So Emmerich's at 19k threat, 20k threat, gets knocked back. Now Klex is the main tank. And the problem with this fight, or it's not a problem, but it's something you need to be very careful of, is that when Emmerich got knocked back, he is now 7th on threat. Klex is now number 1, but once Klex gets knocked back, Broodlord's going to start working his way down the threat meter, essentially just murdering people. He hits so hard, guys. Like, you cannot... If you even know that you're going to get threat and you swap to a sword and board and shield wall, he's still going to like 3-shot you. He's a very hard hitting boss. So be very careful on threat, guys. What I should have done, what needed to be done when this happens, is that you are essentially, your DPS is hard capped by your tanks on this fight, unless you like dying. You need to stay below your tanks, or else Broodlord is just going to chop his way down the list of threat until he's back on the tank, and the healers pick up things again. So you might have tanks with Thunder Furies and Maladats who crank threat, and this is not even an issue. You don't need to pay attention of it. You may have tanks that still are gearing up, and you really need to pay attention to your threat so you're not killed. That being said, to parse on this fight, you need to push the boundaries of how much threat you do, while not going above your off tank. So you want to keep it right on the threshold here. So you'll see that Klex is taking. I am I'm playing with death right now. If I was to if he was to knock back now, I'd be dead. But Emmerich's working his way back up the threat meter. He's now about to pass me. He's working his way to pass me. You'll see Rip full core. He's number 1 on the threat meter. Look how close his threat meter is here. 18k, 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 17k. Right now, I should have just backed off and just let threat be reestablished. Folklore is going for the moon here. He's at 100% threat, and he's going to be. You'll see see my target right there. He unfortunately is dying. There he goes. So now he's back on Emmerich. It's up for Klex now to work his way back up. So I still have, I'm still going through my normal sort of rotation, but this fight had a bit of aggro drop problem. If your Broodlord encounter, if your tanks have no problem with threat and generating more threat than your DPS, then this is a very easy fight. Just use your cooldowns when they need to be used. Keep an eye on the threat meter. Don't do huge bursts of damage after a tank has been knocked away. If you Bloodthirst Whirlwind and you have Diamond Flask and Death Wish up right as the tank gets knocked away, there's a high probability that's going to place you very high on the threat meter, and before your off tank has a chance to work its way back up. So just be careful, guys. Your DPS is hard capped by your tanks on this fight. That may be great for you, that may be horrible for you, but it is the unfortunate reality or fortunate reality that you live in. Now looking at the fight here, we have 33 seconds of Diamond Flask left, we have 27 seconds of Death Wish left, and we are now going into sort of our execute phase rotation. You'll see that Klex has done a great job of working his way up from being knocked back to now he's right under me in threat, but we'll see here that I have both cooldowns up. He's at 22%, and we're on to the execute phase. Spoiler alert, this fight does not end well for me. I start doing exactly what I just told you not to. I start ripping huge damage into Broodlord because I'm a warrior, I'm a fury warrior. I see 15 sub 20% and my eyes light up. I go, time to kill this guy, and I start just executing. That is not the smart thing to do on this fight. If you are going to do this, if you're in a similar situation as to what I am doing right now, what you need to do is you need to get your limited invulnerability potion ready. Do not use a mighty rage potion. Right now, if I were to do this fight again today with how I play right now, one of the recent improvements I've made has been keybinding limited invulnerability potion and using it much more frequently. I would, going into an encounter like this, probably at around 10%, or the minute I see Emmerich get knocked back, lip, because I know that I'm in execute phase, so no one's going to be doing more threat than me, and I know that Broodlord's about to turn on me. If you lip, then he's going to go murder Lasan, and rip Lasan, but he won't murder you. Or he'll go right to Klex. So we'll see here. What happens is that I 5k execute, and I pull threat. This was actually, I don't even think Emmerich was knocked back. I just pulled threat. I should have lipped right here. He would have gone right back to Emmerich, but I don't, and you'll see just how much damage he does very quickly. And Rip Big has to 2-shot. There's guys, you cannot rely on your healers if you pull aggro. You need to know when you need to know when 6 seconds are left in the fight. Pop that lip and then execute, and you have to do that before he attacks you, or the millisecond after he attacks you. And you gotta hope that first attack is not a crit. So you'll see I die. I mean, I do good DPS. This is a good parse, but I'm dead. Just to show what I would have done differently now that I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on this fight and I use limited invulnerability potions more. Knowing that there's about to be execute phase and knowing that I have these cooldowns up, the unfortunate reality is that being so close to our tanks and threat, you cannot go full flex mode. If we look at the damage meter right now, I'm doing still top DPS, 670 DPS. You make a conscious decision right now whether or not you want to burn out in a blaze of glory or play conservatively and keep your buffs for another fight. you may, Broodlord might be the last parse you need, and you don't care if you lose your boss right now because you just want your last orange parse, and perfectly fine strategy if you don't mind doing that. So go ahead, go all out, but just know that if you don't pop a lip in time, if he crits you, if your healers can't react quickly because they do have to put a lot of heals on the main tank, he's going to destroy you. Alright guys, so if we take a look at how I did for Broodlord, I did 728 DPS, and if we look at the rankings, that is a purple parse. So guys, that's Broodlord. It's a very action-packed fight where threat is way more important than your damage. Key things to consider during this fight is, of course, your cooldown usage. Make sure you're using them at the right time. Make sure you watch threat, stay under your tank and your off tank. Be cognizant of when your main tank gets knocked back so that you can pull back in how much threat you do. When you go into execute phase, if you are very, very low on threat under your main tank and off tank, feel free to use a Mighty Rage Potion. If you're knocking on their door and you know that Broodlord may indeed turn on you, have that limited invulnerability potion ready to go. So go ahead and look up what percent the boss is at 6 seconds left. Pop that limited vulnerability potion at that time, at that percentage, and then go hard and don't worry about threat. Closing comments on Broodlord. This is a tricky fight. Going for a parse on this fight is something to where you need to not only be doing your rotation correctly and having the cooldowns used at the right time, but also being very careful about your threat. And if your tanks cannot do enough aggro, then unfortunately it's going to be very hard for you to parse on this fight. But that is just sort of the cruel reality of classic WoW. As tanks get better and better and more gear, you are going to be able to do more damage on this fight and get a higher part. So guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to keep going through the rest of the fights in BWL, and then I'll be doing Zul'Gurub. Really appreciate the likes and subscribes so far, guys. This really is fun, and I enjoy making this content, and I look forward to sticking with you all and making more Fury Warrior content in Classic and into the Great Beyond, whether that's TBC or whatever. So thanks again. More to come soon. Bye.